Here.
East Ward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Here.
Mayor Natalie Nish.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Robert Boggs.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Here. If you would please rise for a moment of silent prayer or reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Minutes from not September 26th, the minutes from August 26th are in your packet. Any comments, questions, corrections? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
A motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next items in your packet are expenditures. There are two expenditures called out on Monica's memo. Monica, is there anything else that you wanted to draw attention to here? Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Monica? If not, I'll take a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we have a proclamation. So this is part of the American Legion's procedures for doing a Day to Remember event. So the proclamation reads, whereas the unprovoked attacks of September 11th, 2001 upon America by foreign terrorists thrust the United States and other countries into a war it never envisioned, militarily or diplomatically, and whereas the challenges facing all the civilized people of the world will not end until those responsible are eliminated or brought to justice, and whereas the people of Marshfield are fully committed to ensuring our freedom remains unfettered and sovereign for all generations now and forever, and whereas the world needs to remain focused upon the eradication of these inhuman acts perpetrated around the globe. And whereas one way to accomplish this is to never forget that those innocent victims did not die in vain. And whereas Marshfield can fight back by reminding the world that the deaths of these people will always be remembered and that they will be forever loved. And whereas a noble and appropriate way to accomplish this is through the annual celebration of their living called Marshfield Remembers. And whereas this commemoration shall be conducted each September 11th to include the promotion of global peace and goodwill, the advancement of responsible citizenship, the encouragement of patriotism and love of country, and the remembrance of those innocent victims who died September 11th as heroes, one and all. Now, therefore, be it resolved as the mayor of Marshfield, Missouri, I am issuing this proclamation to memorialize those men, women, and children who lost their lives. And be it further resolved that this proclamation will be publicized for all to see and know that the citizens of Marshfield remember with eternal respect those whose lives were suddenly, without cause and pointlessly taken from them on September 11th, 2001. May they forever rest in peace and abide in our memories. Respectfully submitted and approved on September 9th, 2021. Next item on the agenda is a project update. Sam?
So I'll try not to bore you to death. I don't have a PowerPoint or any pretty pictures for you tonight, but we'll talk about the leaf dump later on down in the agenda. But we did have a pre-bid meeting we had two contractors show up for that. I'm anticipating two bids to show back up by next Friday. So those will be here for hopefully for your next meeting so that we can get this thing going. I really don't have anything to update on the board other than to tell you we have had some meetings with our contractor and with our engineers, and the progress is very slow. But I wanted to kind of hit on that just a little bit and tell you that there will be some information moving forward soon. Contract number one, which was a lot of the water line replacement, or laying much of the water line and the well houses. It is supposed to be done. It's supposed to be done mid-October. We've extended that contract several times. They're very confident that they can be done in mid-October. Just to be honest, I am not that confident that they will be. We'll probably be extending that a little bit more. Not any big, no cost increases to us on that end. It's just a timing thing. We'd really like to get these things wrapped up. Contract two, which was included the new water tower on Elm Street, and a host of other things. We're down to the punch list items on that. So hopefully I'll be bringing that to you guys to hopefully know exactly kind of where we hit by the end of the year. It's kind of like the interchange, we still haven't seen final numbers and we still haven't seen anything on that. So it's going to take a little while to get through the closeout of that. The SCADA project, you guys may or may not know or be familiar with. We went through and the board had approved to redo the entire SCADA network. It's about 90% of the way complete. It's a very big project. I know you guys probably remember some of that from the orientation that we did. It was about a $780,000 contract. So it's been a very big deal. Things are starting to come online with it now. And so Richard's able to see his alarms and get his alarms. He's able to log in and make changes, and he's able to watch the water pressure and then the water level in the towers, which is a big thing. Obviously, as you guys remember from the big fire that we had out in the industrial park, that's something he could have been able to do at the push of a button instead of being in here in person doing that. So it's a very big deal, much beyond just that one incident. The bypass elimination project, it is not, I would say 99.9% complete as far as that project goes. It is no longer bypassing the plant. We've worked our way through the punch list items. There's one item left for them to do. I look for that to be done within the next few weeks. We're down to a couple of manufacturing clarifications and who's responsible for what. It would really be okay just to go ahead and button that up, but we're trying to make sure everything, I think we owe $1,000 left on the contract. And so it's very minor in the scheme of the overall contract with I might just drew a blank with our current contractor. But anyway, we do have a South Elm Street water line that we're going to be replacing from basically from Schaefer Drive. We own a booster station right there that actually boosts the pressure out to the south portion of town. Those lines out there they're just small. They're undersized, and we're really restricted to how much we can turn that boost station up. We can boost the pressure way up, but the lines out there will not hold it. And so the first phase of that is about, I think it's 1,600 feet, 1,600 feet of that. And I think it'll get us up to, it'll get us out past the city limits. And I think it'll get us out here, probably out there around Cedar Brook. I think there's a valve out there that we're trying to make it to and trying to get to a certain point, but that's still to come at the end of this year. We've already got the pipe purchased for that, already got most of the parts purchased for that. It's just freeing our guys up to have enough time to do it. Our citywide flush, this is something for you guys to just have on your radar. Our citywide flush, we're going to kick it off next week. And so Richard will start flushing lines, basically pulling water from a fresh source. So from a well and from a tower, depending on how it works out, from one side of town to the other. And so it's a very intricate process. It's a very time consuming process. It'll take his whole department 3 to 4 weeks to get through it. And it is a very, very in-depth, in detail. They visit every valve, they turn valves off and they pull water certain ways through the lines to make sure they're all clean. It will cause taste and odor and some cloudiness and dirty water. Richard's working with Melanie right now to make sure and get something out on social media. And I wanted to make sure and let you all know that, so that you knew if you start getting phone calls. It usually takes a day or two to settle down. Obviously, we're pulling the chemicals through the lines as we're going, but it is just one of those things that we try to do every year. And DNR strongly recommends us to do it once a year. When we started the program, it had never been done prior to whenever Richard and I started off doing it, and you could tell. And we started off doing it twice a year. We did it in the spring and we did it in the fall. We've got Richard's done a phenomenal job with our water system. And so we're down to where we really only need to do it once a year, but we have put it off for so long now because of the projects and because we couldn't pull from this tower or this well, that I do anticipate it to be worse than what it's been for a while. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up to kind of prepare yourself for that. I usually take the blunt of all of that, and the girls up front will take the blunt of all that. And I'll try to take care of the Fort Mason to your guys' side, but it just probably will. It's just part of progress. I'll be bringing you guys some video. The guys were able to, you guys authorized the purchase of that sewer pump, that bypass pump for that main trunk line going down to the plant that was going to cost us, $115,000 to contract out. I think we bought the pump and the necessary parts that we needed to be able to do that for 50. We did buy the cutters that you guys also approved. Come to find out, we've never ran the appropriate cutters that we were supposed to have for our lines. We learned through this process that the cutters that we had were fine, but they weren't actually for that truck and they weren't actually for the type of line that we were using. So we've got some pretty cool video that I will show. I'll put something together for you, and it actually shows the cutter in progress. And so what you'll also see is that we have found some major contributors to some of the I&I at our plant. I won't say that we have found the contributors, but we have found some pretty major contributors that Richard's actually meeting with our engineers tomorrow to kind of come up with a game plan and a cost estimate of how to Band-Aid that. They're not super long sections, so we're not looking at needing to replace the whole thing for a Band-Aid, but they are bad enough that we do need to Band-Aid them. We originally were looking at it and saying, okay, if we're going to spend X amount of dollars on the Band-Aid, why don't we just come in beside it and just lay a new line and upsize that line? I think because of the short sections that could be replaced and that's letting the majority of the I&I in, I think we're gonna be way better off permit wise and for what we're treating through the plant to go in there and Band-Aid 20 and 30-foot sections where we can while we come up with an overall plan. I say all that, but we'll see where Richard and Mel get to tomorrow. They're gonna sit down and look at the video and run some numbers and see where we can get to. And it'll also depend on availability of pipe. We are having a problem trying to get pipe. They not only will they not price it, they won't price it because they can't get it. So that has kind of changed our thinking on some of our projects for even next year. And so there may come a point where the purchasing policy is going to be very hard to abide by when we start finding pipe and we can actually get it, because we can't get competitive numbers because this vendor can get pipe, and if they can get it and they're offering it to sell it, we can't find anybody to compare it to. So we may be coming to you all and just saying, listen, this is what we can buy. And it is very time sensitive. I mean, today we had a contractor call and ask, or we had a supplier call and ask us if we would sell some of our drainage tile back. We said, no, we can't afford to be without it. So it is a real problem, right? I mean, you hear about it, and JC, you probably see it at the lumberyard, but it is a real problem that is hitting home, and it's across all fronts. I mean, it's not just the pipe, but I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that, how it may affect some of our internal projects that we just normally do, and sometimes we just buy, if it's within our purchasing authority, we just buy those, but everything's just going up and the availability is going down.
I don't mean to interrupt, but are these the type of pipes that we can slip? That we can sleeve?
Probably. However, we know that those are on that capacity study, those are the lines that are undersized already.
Oh.
And so to do that, you're talking about, the only way that you get that price down is in bulk. And so even if you slip line it, it is less cost construction because you're not digging it up and replacing it. However, the cost to come in and do a short section like that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the mobilization fee on that gets you, isn't it?
And it is very high anyway, but if you're just talking about a small portion, it is very, very high.
Okay.
So, with the purchase of the Mini, with a little bit of rental equipment, this and that, you could still replace that line cheaper than what you could slip line it, I believe.
Okay.
And again, not to undersell the fact that it is undersized.
Right.
Now, obviously, to get it to the proper size, it's not as easy as just going bigger. That's got to be designed. So that would come back to you all anyway. So by the time we tried to get something through design and then installed, I mean, we may very well be talking about a year. I don't think that we even, so when we videoed, it was dry. I mean, it was during the, I mean, still kind of dry, but it was very dry. It had been dry for weeks. And there is still a hefty amount of water coming up through the bottom of the pipe, even while they're bypassing. So while they're bypassing, there's just a ton of water coming into, which means there's a spring or a creek or something getting in through this crack that you can probably stick your hand in the bottom of this pipe. So I don't think that we can wait. And so I think we're going to be looking at band-aiding part of that. You guys probably noticed or have driven across the bump now out there on North Elm where we put some, we had it closed down for a day or two. That's actually a drain line that we put in from the new tower. So basically when we have to flush that tower, we have to drain that tower, trying to get all that water underground so it doesn't run across the road and it doesn't plug that ditch up. It doesn't affect Rockwood. So in that project, though, we were able to internally, we were able to kind of design that to take care of some of the stormwater as well, fill those ditches in, and be able to take that water all the way around to CC Highway, Hubble Drive now, to get that taken care of. And so the reason why that was important and it got pushed ahead of some of the other projects is because if you guys recall, we're paving that section of road. So we had to get that portion to get the road cut, to get the street cut paved back. While we're talking about that, Banning Street, the guys have been finished with it for a while. There's a couple other small soft spots that they have got to fix still on the subgrade side. But today it was closed down. There's a property that's for sale, and then there's another property I think that is going to go ahead and build a house. So there was no sewer connections for those. So the one that is building the house, they paid somebody, a contractor, to come in and do their sewer tap. The other property that was for sale was not interested in putting a sewer tap in there. They just kind of want to sell the property. So the city, we went in and we made a sewer tap. We have kept track of our costs, of what it costs us. I'd have to ask Paul. I don't know that we can absolutely force them to use that tap, but we can absolutely prevent them from cutting the road if there's a sewer tap there available. So, and whatever it costs us is going to be way cheaper than what they can pay a contractor to do. So all I'm looking for is to get reimbursed for what we have in it and not have to cut a brand new road if they sell that. So if you notice that, or if somebody says that we were out there making a sewer tap, absolutely we were. That's not typical business, but I don't want to have to dig that road right back up after we pave it. The way that it goes, there'll be a water leak. There'll be some other reason that we have to cut it and go in there, but that's just how it works. Our meter change out. I think I've explained it before, but we have roughly 3,000 meters in town. We've got about 600 of those left to change out. It kind of, I think that we would have been, I think we probably could have cut that in close to half, but because we wanted to get that sewer line video, it was an all hands on deck situation down there, and there was a lot going on down there. And so we kind of put that off for a couple weeks. And then with this flush, we're kind of going to put it on another little hold, but we're still moving forward with that. Hopefully having a little trouble getting a few of the last meters. So hopefully we'll be done by the end of the year with what is covered under the SRF. There are a few that are not, that will be coming out of just a regular meter budget, and those may have to wait until we get those in next year. Richard was talking with the vendors today, and it's not looking promising that we can get a quick turnaround on those. Some of them are next spring if we order them today. Marshall Street, we chose to kind of pause button and not overlay that this year, but we are going to go ahead and widen that intersection down there at Hubble. We've received the boxes for those. We were on hold for those for a month and a half or 2 months, and it was just kind of dumb luck that we ordered the ones for Elm Street and the ones for Marshall, and they had enough for a day, so we were able to get our boxes. So we've got a few things to get ready for the pavers, and so when we get those done, then we'll jump over. We'll get that intersection knocked out, and then we're headed on to my next bullet point. We're headed on out to Prairie Lane. Prairie Lane we're hopeful to be out there. We're hopeful to be out there by October. And then it'll take a little while to get through that. And I do anticipate having to budget more money to put into Prairie Lane next year. Just not because I don't think that we will get what we wanted to get done this year, because it has dilapidated further and the soft spots have just gotten bigger. It's not that if we'd have been out there and got the other patches done, that I don't think that it would have failed. They just weekly or monthly, depending on the weather, they just get worse. And then I've got it on further down in there to talk about, but Elm Street, the pavers, they did call, and they're planning on coming in tomorrow to start cutting the dirt off the top. And hopefully they're gonna be putting base rock on Monday and Tuesday. Not saying it'll be ready Monday and Tuesday, but that's progress, and it will take them a little while to get 6 inches of base rock on there and get it all fine graded. And then they're ready to come in and start paving and overlaying. So they didn't give me any kind of estimate on when they were gonna do that, but they have a grading crew that's open, and so they're gonna send them down over the next week. So should start seeing some progress. Lots to throw at you there, and that doesn't hit everything. There's a lot going on to say.
To say the least. Any questions for Sam? Okay, thank you for the project update. Alderman, I would like to move new business item number 1 to the top of our agenda so that Dale can present on the harvest days and he can go ahead and leave us. Is that all right with you guys? All right, Dale.
Yeah, I'm Dale Hartwell with Marshfield Harvest Days. And this year, like last year, want to close off Madison Street from Crittenden to Clay on the inside half all day. I've also talked about closing off Marshall Street from Jefferson to Madison Friday and Saturday. Then I would like also to block off Madison Street at noon on Friday, the whole thing.
Have you talked to the business owners along there about doing that?
I talked to Sheila's worker. And see, they closed at 2, so she wasn't too worried about it. I haven't really talked to anybody. What I've got is, the reason why I want to is I've got a horse and carriage coming, and I'm gonna put them on Marshall Street. And she's also got a horse rides on a carousel. And I want her to be able to come out of Madison onto out of Marshall onto Madison and not have no traffic coming in bothering me.
Can you say those dates and what portion?
17th and 18th.
But tell me what sections you want to shut down on what dates? What did you say? You want to close what down on Friday?
Marshall Street from Jefferson to Madison. No, not Jefferson, Jackson.
Marshall. From Jackson
Case Realty and
to
Webster County Printing
yeah.
on Friday and Saturday.
And then you said,
Now,
you also had said all of Madison.
on Friday at noon and Saturday. I've always closed it all off on Saturday.
Right, and I want to make sure the board understands this. Typically, that is the request is for the weekends. And so this is a little outside of the normal. And so you'll have a few business owners down there that may or may not be aware. Something for you to consider in that.
This affect any classes after school? Some of those cut through, don't they? They used to.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've
That's
seen
another
it
good
on
question.
I met one today on Madison.
I think they cut through there.
What's that?
A school bus.
School bus routes.
Get he come up Madison and turned on the grid that had the four-way.
So if they can't come down, so if they can't turn on Madison, it automatically shifts them out on Jackson. And so Jackson and Clay Street is not exactly prime for a bus trying to turn left. So I don't,
Now,
you have to have Madison on Friday at noon. Like, I mean, could you do it at 5?
no, 5 won't help me. I don't catch where the bus is a problem.
Well, if you close off Madison, the bus can't come in like it was, like they did.
Because they turn,
They
turn off of Clay onto Madison
I think that's Madison.
and then they come on down.
That's Marshall.
Madison.
And then Madison. Madison's the one that goes across there. And that's.
Does that make sense, Dale?
Well, they're coming from, they're coming from the school, right?
Yeah, hang on
The
just a second.
buses.
Let me see if I can, make this a little easier, maybe.
On Marshall's, so that'll cover all of the Western County Printing's parking lot.
Yep, they're not open.
They're not open.
And on Friday, I only need the half of it toward the square. I don't need the whole thing.
On Madison?
On Marshall,
Oh,
on Friday.
Marshall's really not a problem.
I didn't think so.
Marshall's really not a problem, in my opinion. I mean, it's up to the board, but Marshall's not really a problem. Madison, in my opinion, I think that there's going to be some hesitation and some conflict on that. Let me get this pulled up so everybody's on the same page. I'm trying. Okay, so what you're talking about, Dale. Okay, so you're talking about, so obviously here's north
Yeah,
up here. So this is Clay Street. This is Madison. This is Marshall. And so this is the busiest, heaviest traffic corner on the square. So by doing so, Stacy brings up a good point. I don't know, because I don't know how many buses come around there, if my cursor would work here. But this is Clay Street. So if they can't turn here, that is forcing them to come down Clay Street. And if it'll let me zoom out.
Oh, that's the corner you're talking about.
If it,
They're at like Brooks
right
in
there.
the historical.
So Brooks isn't this, yes, but Brooks isn't the concern. If they
I
can't,
understand now what you're talking about.
yeah, so if the buses, if there's one bus is enough, but if there's multiple buses that can't make this turn onto Madison and they're forced to come here, you can't hardly make a left out of there from noon until 5 in an SUV.
Yeah,
So I think that that's a problem. This section of Marshall, I don't think you'd have any argument. I don't think there's any problem doing that. There'd only be like 1 or 2 businesses that you'd even have to talk to, as long as they could get to their property.
yeah.
I don't think it'd be a problem. But closing this down on a weekday, it's up to the board, but I don't know that I would support that. Not unless it was a holiday when the square was closed down.
Well, it's holiday, it's harvest days.
I mean, I want to see you be able to do everything that you want to do, Dale, but
You foresee problems.
well, I just have to stress to the board that I do. I mean, Doug, what's your?
Do you have an alternative location for that setup?
No.
Something else that you?
Well, I don't have an all, and I will be all right with not doing it.
So what you're wanting to do there is tell me again what you're wanting to do. That's for the horse and buggy.
For a horse and buggy, and I don't want her pulling out in the street with a lot of people coming.
So let me ask you this.
But I don't see
So let me ask you this. Could you make, so the city owns this parking lot here. Could you make something on the north side the northeast side of the square work for that activity? Because once you once you get off the square, it's not near as big a deal if you close the road down.
Yeah, but see, I don't, that's the problem. I don't want to get off the square.
Okay.
You know, if we get off the square, then I've lost my,
I see a struggle even if you try to close it down to one lane during the day before 4 o'clock, honestly.
well, I've closed it down every year,
Right.
halfway.
But
And I
if you
want to
do
do it, and I want to do it this year halfway.
So I think that might work, but I'm telling you to close the whole thing of Madison down. I'm just telling you that intersection on the southeast corner of the square is the busiest intersection on the square.
Yeah, what do you mean? You did it halfway? What do you mean?
I closed the inside half off
Okay.
next to the courthouse. I've closed that off for
Yeah.
several years.
Yeah, and I don't think I have any heartburn over that. But the total thing, I think Doug would be, I think Doug would have issues up there. I think that our phones would ring off the hook, and I think that I do not feel like every citizen would think that that was a good idea.
But we'll just strike that off. I can get by this year. Now, in the future, as harvest days grows, I may be inclined to shut the whole square off. Maybe bringing that before you.
The whole square on a Friday? Okay. Yeah.
Well, you know, Seymour, they have theirs Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They close the whole square down.
They also close your schools down.
Fairgrove, they have theirs Thursday, Friday. They shut their main street off.
But they don't
And they
have
close
a
their
court,
schools.
but they don't have a courthouse in the middle of their
No,
square.
but do we want harvest days on the square or one in the fairground?
I mean, I personally, I like it up there. I think it's very inviting, especially with the money that we've invested and that we're
Mhm.
trying to get, people to use it. I think it's a great place for it and a great avenue. I just, so I would probably turn that around. Is that the best date for harvest days?
Yes.
So with that being said, I mean, I don't want to speak for Doug, but I don't see where I could support shutting the whole square or even one road of the square down on a work day. I don't. I mean, I want to see you do everything. I want to see it grow. I want to see it go, but I just, the square, so you have to block it off blocks beyond and roads beyond to be able to maneuver around it. And I just know going through that construction, I mean, that's why we worked overnight into
Yeah.
the night, because you can't close those down. And when you do, people still drive through it. And then you're putting your participants in harm's way because they don't want to turn. They don't want to stop. That's just my opinion. I'll leave it at that.
So what is it that you need on Friday?
Friday, I was wanting the outside of Madison.
The outside lane of Madison?
Yeah. That's what I wanted. That's not been the same so far every year. I've always closed the inside.
So you're saying you're wanting to close, you're still asking to close all of Madison?
The inside lane of Madison, I want it closed.
Yeah.
I'm asking if I can also close the outside lane.
Okay.
And that's what
The inside is standard with what they do every year.
Alderman?
I was wondering if, have you talked to Mike Henry and seen if there's, another place that the bus could turn? Because there's not really any drop offs along that corner to the four-way for kids, I don't believe. And maybe that solves the bus problem.
And I can speak from someone that deals with that. You go to messing with those bus routes. Those bus routes take longer. They don't get back to the schools to pick up the second run kids, which puts those kids home even later. They're getting home at 5:30 now at best
Well, those buses take the routes that are built for those buses.
for those
Right.
buses.
Those routes are pre-designed.
They are not made to be messed with. that messes with a ton.
Well, without knowing if that does or doesn't, without having that information, I would not be for closing all Madison. Just because we don't know. I mean, if it is a potential problem, it could be a big one. If,
I understand. I understand.
I mean, is there any other, you want that, it has to be on the square for you, for it to be a success.
Yeah, because the further you take it off square, people's not gonna go to it.
I just don't know how you can do it without. You close other roads off, I just don't think that you can close down the square.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
I was just thinking, just because we've been to a lot of places where they do carriage rides and stuff, and I mean, if, in my mind, if you staged them somewhere on that inside of the square of Madison, they could just get in traffic flow to go around the outside in a loop. I mean, that's how they do it in New York and any of those other towns. I mean, they stage them somewhere and then they jump out in traffic flow, and just like the Amish ride the buggy through town. I'm guessing I'm not exactly sure if I'm following what they're doing, just giving carriage rides.
Does that mess with your booths? You have booths on the inside parking spaces.
I've got 4. So I think I'll check that out. I might be able to do that.
I mean, that's how all those I mean, they'll have 20 of them in line, then they just jump out into traffic flow because, they
Well,
have
she's-
right away just like the automobiles do.
I've got on Clay Street, I've got 2 food vendors. I got Sonic at the center. They'll be on the street. And then one down at the Jefferson, they'll be on the street. And I could put the one that I have on Madison at Clay Street. I could run her around the corner and put her on the street.
Are you, I can't remember, Dale, are you doing 3 sides? Do you close down the inside of the whole square?
No,
Would
I
that
quit.
help you? Would that help you?
no,
No?
no, because I lose parking, see? 2 years ago, I started setting up booths in the street. But last year, when they had the sidewalk tore up, I put a lot of booths in the yard. So this year, I'm putting more in the yard and trying to stay off the street so I can, have parking. But I didn't think about that. She's got a 40-foot circle, and that would fit in the parking in half in Madison.
Oh, yeah.
Then I think
Might work.
that'll work.
Okay.
And I may, at school bus time, I may kind of see what the traffic is. That way we kind of know for next year.
So it doesn't help you at all to close it down completely after 5. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That could be something else the board could look at and say, you can close down half of it until 5, and then after 5, you can close down the whole thing if it would help you any. I just don't think that we could do.
I don't know that it would. Now, Saturday, I closed the whole thing down.
Yeah, and that's what you're requesting, right? That's
Yeah.
what you're requesting for Saturdays to close the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I've done for years.
right. And I don't see it as a big challenge.
Okay, let's put it, can I close the whole thing down at 5?
The whole square.
The
or
whole
back?
inside.
No, the whole Madison,
Whole
that
Madison.
section.
I don't see that being as much of a problem since all the courthouse should be closed.
Yeah.
All the other businesses, Sheila's is closed.
Sheila's is open till 6.
She's open till
for
2.
walk-in. Well, she's open till 6 for walk-ins.
Oh, she is now?
But everything
As
else
long
is
as they
closed.
have access off.
But she also has that little parking deal
Yeah.
right there off the side. And I think I could support that myself, but I don't know what you guys feel like.
Close it after 5, the whole thing. Yeah. I don't think there's anything along there that's open.
When we do scheduled work up there, we schedule it for after 5 because everybody's usually, they're usually gone. I don't think, it's not a problem on mine end. Is it on yours, Doug?
Okay, I want to see if my notes are right. Ready? On Friday, the inside of Madison and the inside of Marshall along the square.
All of Marshall.
All
All
of
of
them.
Marshall.
All of South Marshall.
All of South Marshall, okay. At 5 PM, the second lane of Madison. And then on Saturday, it would be all of Madison and all of the inside of the square.
No,
No.
just Marshall and
Just
Madison.
Marshall and Madison.
I've always asked for the whole inside of the square, but I've never done it the last 2 years. And like,
Okay.
you got it?
I think I do. I'm gonna read it off one more time. Make sure you correct me if I got it wrong, because I'm just gonna ask for a motion after it. Okay?
Yep.
All right. I'm looking for a motion to approve closure of Madison, the inside of Marshall, no, the inside of Madison and all of South Marshall on Friday at 5 PM on Friday, adding the other lane of Madison. And on Saturday, closing the inside of Marshall and all of Madison,
All of both.
all of both. All of Marshall and Madison.
We'll make a motion.
Motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank
Motion
you.
Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I got one other thing I want to ask. The lady with the horses, can she take them to the fairgrounds and
Oh, make the loop.
no, take them to the fairgrounds at night, Friday night,
Oh,
17th? Yeah. 2 weeks. That way she don't have to take it back to Mountain Grove.
Talking about just putting them in the barn, Dale.
Yeah, just put them in the stall.
Yeah.
Just do Friday night.
Next week on Friday night. the 17th. We're clear on the 17th. And then I don't have anybody in there until, I do have some people there on Saturday morning, but yeah, the evening of the 17th, we're good.
Okay.
Good to
Do
go.
you have anything in the barn, any of the barns on the 18th? It may depend on which barn they put them in.
Rotary, Massey. No, let's see what they're using. Bethel has it rented all day. They've got the whole thing rented all day, except the kitchen. They could be using the barns. I mean, part of the rental.
You two can work that out though, right?
Yes.
If the board is open to allowing him to do that, you can find a home for that. Yeah.
I'll take consensus. Any objections?
No.
Okay, we'll let the two of you work on that. All right, and we'll go back up to unfinished business. Thank you, Dale. Okay, first up on the agenda is COVID policies and procedures. I got a few points in here. First off, since our last meeting, the governor has repealed the state of emergency. And therefore, I would like to repeal ours as well. So what you have in your packet is the bill that would repeal it. And then you have a copy of the ordinance that was passed in March of 2020 when this pandemic began. I'll run through real quick, see if we have any comments or questions or concerns, and then I'll read the bill. Lee? Cunningham? Boggs?
No.
Quinn? Okay, I will read the bill. Bill number 2021-32, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2020-17, declaring a civil emergency and issuing an order prohibiting any public gathering of 50 or more persons except for educational institutions, daycare facilities, daily business operations, places of employment, grocery stores, retail stores, or any activity a court of competent jurisdiction holds cannot constitutionally be closed in these specific circumstances in the corporate limits of the city of Marshfield to protect public health.
Move to approve.
Roll call.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Number 2, bill number 2021-32, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2020-17, declaring a civil emergency and issuing an order prohibiting any public gathering of 50 or more persons except for educational institutions, daycare facilities, daily business operations, places of employment, grocery stores, retail stores, or any activity a court of competent jurisdiction holds cannot constitutionally be closed in these specific circumstances in the corporate limits of the city of Marshfield to protect public health.
Make a motion.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Thank you. The next item that you have in your packet is a copy of Senate Bill number 5. This is a particular piece of legislation that was passed by our state. It's been best known as the COVID liability law. If you would turn to page 6, numbers are up at the top. You'll see a little paragraph there towards the top that says warning. Basically, the way this law reads is that as long as we post this at the entrances of our places of business, then we are precluded from COVID liability. So the way we're doing this at the university is we've developed those nice clear stickers like window cling that you put on a car that has this that you see right here on it. It's pretty small. You will have to get down to the toe kick to read it, but nonetheless, it is there and it complies with the law, and we're slapping it right above the toe kick, and there you have it. Got to do it for every building that you have. So this is a state law. It's not something we need to pass, but it is something that I think we should implement in order to follow state law. So we'll be looking at getting some stickers and slapping them on some doors. Any questions, comments, or concerns on that? Okay. Along with that, ongoing COVID-related procedures. So the top of your agenda for the past 18 months has had this great big blurb about in response to coronavirus, blah, 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 blah. It's time to get rid of that, in my opinion, especially since we've repealed the state of emergency. At this point, it doesn't mean that we have to not do social distancing. It doesn't mean that we have to stop recording. It doesn't mean that we can't still use the resources that we have now developed to have people Zoom in, especially members of the public that maybe can't be here. It has been great to work with our contractors and our engineers that honestly we're saving money with travel expenses, because they're able to give us a project update and we don't have to pay the $100 it took to get them here and back, right? But I do feel like the top end of this probably needs to go. As far as what that means for us, it means that a quorum of the body must be physically present in order to have a meeting, physically present in the room. Unless something changes, that would be my preference moving forward. This will also apply to all of our other boards and committees. Okay, so they will have to have a physical quorum present before the ones on Zoom count, correct? Okay, so if they're a board of 9, we got to have 5 of them here, and then the other 4 can be virtual, and it's just fine. All those votes will still count, but we've got to have 5 of them here. Any concerns with that? Any reasons to not go that direction at this point? Okay, then we will change what the top of your agenda looks like, because I do like having the ability to record our meetings. I think it's kind of helped staff on several things. We've definitely had members of the public ask, hey, what happened? You know, it's been useful to direct to a meeting that they didn't attend. And I really do like having that interface where if somebody wants to pop on, they can. So we will work on how to get the Zoom still in there. We'll just lose the coronavirus wording. Any other COVID-related procedures that we need to talk about for our purpose? I did throw in the last update that I received. And I circled the top because they are changing their meeting dates. So this is the last one I received. It will actually be updated tomorrow. But it has some pretty good information in it. I would like the board's opinions on whether or not we continue to have a COVID update in the meetings, or do we just wait until somebody sees a problem and we need to add it to an agenda? What is your preferences?
My idea is we don't spend too much time on it, and it's a good idea to keep an eye on it because there are some other variants that are supposed to be making their way here. And
The new,
right.
yeah. So are we okay with, maybe I don't have it as an agenda item. Can I put it in? We don't really have consent. That can be pulled out. We'll just keep it as an agenda item. And keep these reports in front of you as best we can. And if we think it's an issue, we'll talk about it. And if it's just the report was provided, does anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns, and we go on past it? We're good there? All right.
I mean, if you're not wanting to take action on it, we can just put reports on there every meeting instead of every other meeting. It's up to you.
That probably work. I'll try to remember to forward them a little bit more often. Okay. Anything else in COVID that I have forgotten? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the water tower cleaning bid award. Sam?
You handed these out, didn't you, Karen? So there's an overview sheet, basically telling you what the breakdown of the 3 bids that we received. The apparent low bidder is this Onyx Blasting and Coating out of Florida. All the references are out of Florida. Richard's talked to him multiple times, and they are bidding on 4 or 5 other jobs up here around the same time, and that's why they're trying to pick up another one while they're here. I honestly don't have any reason to not recommend to award that bid. I will tell you that we budgeted $29,000 for this work. Those were estimates that we got for last budget season, but since then, obviously prices have went up. So I think it's very apparent that they need to be done. And I don't know why staff would recommend approving the low bid.
What is,
All of them. It's doing the exterior of the 3 and the interior of 1.
what is our plan for the additional 10,000?
We'd have to come out of cash.
It's gonna come out of,
I say that.
unallocated.
It wouldn't have to, but we're not really replacing anything. So I would think that it would be an unallocated cash expenditure.
Okay.
It's too early to tell. I wouldn't necessarily say that this will knock us into a budget amendment. So, I mean, it may just come off of where we end up at the end of the year. So, but
Okay.
if it puts us into that position, yes, it would be a cash expenditure.
Okay.
We're budgeted to come from anyway, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking for any questions or comments. So Cunningham,
None.
Boggs?
I guess, does that have them replacing the logos and?
No, so that was something that this other company just threw in there. We didn't ask for that because obviously we're going to go through that. The paint needs to be replaced. So this company, we've talked to them about the adhesion issues, about it's got lead paint underneath of them. They're gonna have to be as gentle as what they can be and still get the mildew and the mold off. And so they completely understood, and they said they would work with us if the logo portions came off, that they would work with us on that to get those replaced. So no, it is no logo. It's no logo. In fact, this other one from Ozark Applicators,
That was an additional.
it was just an
Yeah.
additional, like the rigging, they've got rigging in there, so they have to rig up on part of it on the interior. So the apparent low bidder would be them, but then when you put the rigging in there for them to wash the entire portion of the wet, then they're not the low.
Yeah.
This other one it is included. I
Okay.
will tell you that tonight, I am looking for you to approve the low bidder, but then this will have to come back in a contract form. So this will be back on your agenda for next meeting, but I need to get that approval so I can get this locked in so we can move forward with that next meeting.
Okay.
Quinn,
No question.
Lee,
I'm good.
okay. So I am looking for a motion.
Motion. No better.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Leaf dump operations, Sam?
So I know we talked about this at the last meeting, and I know we kind of agreed we'd bring this back up in a month, but I've had some time to think about that, and I've been out there several times trying to figure out how we were gonna do the pre-bid meeting today, how the operations were gonna work out there. And so, I mean, I could put that drawing back up there, but I really, it's gonna take two people to staff it to be able to control it. But what I wanted to talk to you all about tonight was, I think that we're gonna have it open by the end of October, hopefully by the middle of October. However, it's gonna take me some time to find some people to operate it. We obviously can't do that with current staff, so we're gonna be looking for part-time people to do that. So I need to get that ball rolling so that I can get somebody in here to do it. I'll have that broke out in the budget for next year for what the leaf dump is actually gonna cost us for part-time based off of what we do this year. So I personally, I don't know what the frequency is. I don't know what the board's favor is. I don't, obviously don't want to have to staff it all the time, but I want it to be a use that everybody is comfortable using and that it's not piling up in their yards. And if we're going to invest, I don't know, I'm just throwing numbers out, $8,000 to $15,000, $20,000 to improve a site to be able to use it, then we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to use it. So when I look at it, I try to look at how are we going to staff it? How often are we going to use it? I personally, I don't think it needs to be open for any more than one day per week and then every other weekend at the most. I think that those are 6 hours through those time periods, but I also want to know what your guys' opinion is. And if it's more than that, I just need to know what to plan for and what to hire for. But I just don't know what those windows look like, right? If it's through the daytime, through a normal business day, is that a 9 to 3 type of thing? Somebody's gonna mow early or have it done by the time it gets hot in the late afternoon. And then on the weekends, is it that same time period? Also knowing that it's gonna be very difficult to staff probably after 3 o'clock on a Saturday, and how consistent is somebody gonna be if it's part-time? I think that we're already going to have to, I don't think that we're going to be looking at minimum wage to pay these people. I think that you're probably going to be paying $20 an hour in order to get somebody that is going to want to come back and somebody competent enough that is going to be able to check their credentials and then that we trust to be out there on their own as a part-time employee to make sure they're not dumping stuff that they're not supposed to. So I want to get the board's appetite on what your thoughts are.
Okay, open for conversation. Boggs?
I've never used the service, so it's hard to know. I know trying to do as minimal as possible without just having them sit out there. So I'm probably okay with what you're speculating. Just
And we can always scale up or scale down, right? I mean, I personally question whether or not it needs to be even one day every week. However, you do have those people that are going to use it. And so I think that we need to start off that way. And I think that once the word gets out and we advertise and we start using it, I think we'll figure that out a little bit. Obviously, it may be one of those things that we need to look at for we may need to increase that in the spring and fall. Obviously, the fall may be more because of the leaves and everybody trying to get rid of their leaves. But also, I mean, the intent, in my opinion, is that this is for individuals and citizens. This is not for contractors that are doing it for profit. That is, in my opinion, that's their problem to do something with that, because unless we're going to charge a fee, I don't know that that's our place to house that.
So I'm just sitting here thinking about this as we talk about that. So if we did scale up, this is something that might work in the future is like if we had like a dump truck, like they have those containers, you can put stuff into a dump, kind of like a dump trailer. You know what I mean? The dumpster things. But if we had a spot over by the police station where people could put waste in, they would probably be less likely to put trash or limbs. You think, in my mind, it makes me think that. I'm just thinking if this didn't work out, we needed some place because people were upset that they didn't have any place to. We're probably not talking about a lot of debris, but it just made me think that maybe if we had something by the police station, we might get less problems.
I think that, just personal opinion, I'll do whatever you guys want. I personally think that you're still inviting a mess for
Somebody,
us and for the rest of the citizens to pay for
okay,
that don't want to drive.
Yeah.
The facility that we're investing money into and that we're trying to staff to give them a service for free.
right.
So if you make it too convenient, the people that are abusing it now will find a way to abuse it.
Still, okay, I'm with you.
And two, keep in mind, it's not only, I mean, even the people that take just leaves, which was always allowed down there. They throw their bag, they just throw a bag of leaves out there and they run off. Well, I mean, then that doesn't break down. We go out there and we have to cut bags and rip them open. They're nasty and gross. That stuff starts to ferment. And it's just nasty. So I don't think that that's a good option.
I hadn't thought about that. They would just throw their bags and all in, so you still would have the mess to.
And so now you're paying another staff member.
Yeah, you're just creating more work for yourself. I'm with you.
Quinn?
You thinking about like a weekend day?
So here's my thought. I really want to prevent, I really don't want it to be open on Sunday. I just don't, I personally have struggles with that and I just don't think that we ought to do that. So I'm thinking like a 9 to 3 on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking probably if you can't make it on Saturday, I think that you kind of got to break it up and do a Tuesday, Wednesday to kind of hit the people that might mow their yard. I'm assuming that several retired people are going to be mowing their yard through the week and may not want to mess with the crowd. If there's I don't think it'd be a crowd, but if there's people out there, they may not want to mess with it on the weekend. They may not want to get out on it. So if we're going to do a day through the week, I would think we'd try to pick a day closer to the middle of the week. That way you're hitting every other weekend here and one day through the week.
And you think every other weekend will be enough?
It's hard to judge because it's never consistent down there and the people that are coming are just abusing it. So if we tie it down to the people that are actually using it, I'll kind of turn your question to JC. JC, you use it. So what is your?
I
thought?
use it probably 3 times a week when the leaves start falling.
Okay,
So this is not gonna work for me.
okay,
So I want to have to pick them up, pile them in my backyard somehow. And then I gotta fork them all back on the trailer. So
okay,
this is not gonna work for me.
okay.
I don't know what the answer is,
Yeah, I don't either.
but when the leaves fall, you've been to your mother-in-law's lately, the
Oh, sure.
leaves are already down there.
Sure.
I have no place to take them, so I can pick them up. I'm just blowing them out on the city.
But there,
you know-
is that just during leaf time?
Yes, just the fall. The fall is the biggest problem. Spring, you don't have that big problem. People might pick up one time if they do it in the fall.
If they do it,
They
right?
might do it. I don't.
They usually end up in our
I-
ditches and our culverts, so.
Yes.
So I mean, that's where I was saying,
But
we
my
may have to gear
equipment,
up.
my equipment is not big enough where I can pick them up
Right,
when they all fall. I have to get them as they come down.
sure.
So that's my concern. And I think there's a lot of people in town like that. But I don't
So I
think
don't
as many
know.
people is going to use it with it being out that far.
I don't-
I don't think so. I don't think we'll have a rush on a Saturday lined up all the way back down there.
I don't either. The problem is if you try to staff it for
And I understand
that,
you don't
I
have the
don't
staff.
know how you, I
I
don't
know.
know how you'd staff it, right?
Just
So I
give me
mean.
a key.
Yeah.
So those who manage staff, is it easier to start out big and shrink or start out small and grow? Is it easier to add hours to your employees or take off hours, part-time employees? What's easier?
It's more efficient to start small. When-
What-
For us, if we don't start big, we
Yeah.
will never get it back. That to.
It's harder to grow it?
Because
Okay.
the part-time,
Start bigger and whittle down.
because the part-time people, we've run into this even in the parks and even with some of our part-time other people that, I mean, they're not looking for a full-time gig.
So what if we started out with Tuesday, Thursday, and every other Saturday?
See, and I'm the
I-
opposite. I think you need
Okay.
every Saturday.
So I can go a week.
Okay, no, I agree with you. I mean,
could go
Saturday's the
over
only
a
time
week
I can
without
use
it
it.
done.
Saturday's all, I mean, we don't use it
Yeah,
because I don't want to go in there and wade through the trash.
Yeah.
Is why we don't. If I don't have to wade through the trash, I'll probably use it. The Saturday's the only time I can use it.
it'd be the only
9 to
time I
3,
could
I'm
use
at
it.
work. My husband's at work. I mean, a lot,
I'm retired.
majority, well, we don't care about you.
You can pick up our leaves.
You can do our leaves, yeah.
So
When
I-
you get your key.
So if we're gonna do it that often, so would it be acceptable to the board to say from September 15th to,
November 15th, every Wednesday and Saturday.
That,
Nothing
yeah.
later than November.
I don't
Right.
think, I'm like Josie, I don't think we need it in the spring every Saturday.
right? Grass clippings and maybe just green waste through the normal, like mowing and stuff, I think that is way too frequent. I think that every weekend is way too frequent. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion, but there again.
And so what we will also plan to do is tally how many cars come through
Right.
Sure.
on each
Sure.
shift.
But you
And
know,
we'll keep an eye on it.
you're going to go 9 days without being able to go out there.
And that's a mess, especially if it rains.
I'm going to have a mess.
Are you looking at like the high school kid helping out too?
It will be, I don't know, whoever we can get, but that's the problem though. See,
One thing
it-
we found with part-time help is it's hard to find people that only want to work for 5 hours to entire day, where we found people want to work an 8-hour day if they're gonna do a part-time gig, at least for our court part.
Yeah.
They would want to do an 8-hour, and then, you know, I think that a lot of people do work during the days. So 9 to 5, so I think the weekend would probably be better.
here's the challenge with that though, and it is a management thing, and so somebody's gonna have to take this and own this, so with them being part-time, if they have something better that comes up on a Saturday,
They just call in.
we have set, the board has set for that to go in. We as staff have no other remedy other than to pull full-time people in. And now we're either accumulating comp time at a very rapid pace, which they may be just sitting there, or which is pulling us away from something else, or we make a decision to close it because somebody, you get what I'm saying? So with a full-time person, you have leverage there because that's their job. Part-time, it could be very challenging to do that. So, I mean, that's why the discussion, right? I just need to know, because we may not be looking for 2 people, we may be looking for 6 people. But if you're on a big rotation, you only get so many hours because you have to have backup people for them in case they call in. I mean, I just don't want to get into a situation where I have to start calling our full-time employees and going, hey, I need a volunteer to work this Saturday, because we already do that on when we have jobs.
Mhm.
I need a volunteer for this Saturday, and if I don't get one, I'm just gonna start drawing for a straw. That's terrible. And it's just kill morale, and it worked. I just want to be careful and cognizant of that. And if we need to staff it more often and plan for that, that's fine, but it's gonna cost us more money. I just need to know what the board's appetite for that. I've seen it from the part-time side of trying to hire people to come in and just drive a dump truck or just do this and that to help us out. And I mean, it doesn't have appetite or flavor until you surpass $20, until you hit $20 an hour.
Just see, we're going to have problems if you're not open on that. You're going to be you're going to get a lot more burn permits, a lot more fire. What it's going to be.
I mean, the flip side of that is that if we're open more,
And it's not gonna be, if you're open more, you're not gonna have as much traffic. I understand.
right.
I understand that.
But if you're open more, I mean, we're still spending money on the abuse down at the fairgrounds. So, maybe it offsets itself, but those are hard dollars, not internal dollars. The monies that we spend down there cleaning it up, those aren't hard dollars. We're paying our guys anyway.
Yeah, but I can see, you can't open it more. Because you probably might have 5 or 6 people come day here. You might. I understand.
Yeah.
Then I'm looking at my point.
Mhm.
I want to get it. I can't pick up the back half of my yard because of the trees. I have to keep the front. And I do it every. So that's just my.
See, and I've even thought about it as far as, if people that want to use it, is it worth charging a fee? And I don't think any amount of fee would make it palatable to somebody that's been using it or that needs it. I don't think you could charge enough to offset enough of our costs to even make it worth it, because then technically our collector needs to be out there collecting the monies, or they come down here and get a pass to go out there, and it just doesn't work. So
It's a lot of footwork.
I just don't think it works. So it's obviously it is a service that we're going to provide at a different level than what we've ever done. And so if we want to start off more, that's fine. And I mean, I can run some numbers, and you don't have to make a decision tonight, but you can see how we're kind of all in a different spot. And so that's why I needed it to be on.
We need to get going on this.
Yeah.
Like say leaf fall.
Right. And I think the site will be ready. I really do. I think that we can have that done, but
Or if we're talking in October, might be late.
I don't think it won't be ready before mid-October. So there's no way.
That's, we're getting late.
Does it have to be banker's hours?
October, November when it needs
I
to
mean-
be over.
No, it could be evenings, but it's gonna get dark by 5:30.
Yeah, but most people aren't gonna get up, have their yard mowed and have it ready and be out there by 9 o'clock. If there was somebody there, say 10, and it was open till 5,
I'm 100%.
if you're off work at 4 and you mowed the night before, you
Even
can get it
noon,
loaded up
you know.
and, yeah.
But it doesn't do anything for the leaves, because by the time it's time to start picking up the leaves, it's dark by 5:30. I mean, you can't see them.
But if
You
you
don't want anybody out there in the dark.
Right, but if you got home one day and got them up and loaded, then you can run out there after work the next day and get rid of it.
I really don't know the answer. So literally going out there trying to figure out how this was gonna work and where we were gonna dump. And I got to thinking, I was like, how is this gonna work, and how's it gonna be convenient with everybody without paying 2 full-time people? I mean, we have hard enough time staffing our other projects, let alone a service that we don't have to provide, right? I understand that we have, and that we want to, and I'm all on board with that, but that's a service that we don't have to. But yeah, we have a hard time staffing the ones that we have to provide.
Okay.
So
Any other information for Sam? Any other input? Sam, do you have the questions you
I
had
think
somewhat
so.
answered?
I think so. So I'll put together some kind of operations plan, and I'll put a cost associated with that, based off
That
of
sounds
the
good.
worst case scenario, right? Of paying something that has an appetite for somebody to come and do it. And then we'll just see what the board's appetite is once you see the cost associated with that.
That sounds good.
We can do that.
Elm Street Extension. Sam?
So excuse me. Elm Street was designed basically in conjunction with the interchange. So CMT designed the interchange and CC Highway and Elm Street. Obviously, it was an alternate. We chose not to because the actual funds that the cost share wasn't eligible for Elm Street. Our bonds are eligible for it, but the cost share was not eligible for it. So we basically had to step away from that. So it was designed under CMT. But since we kicked that out of that project, our on-call transportation engineers is Great River. Well, so we're under contract with Great River for the inspection services. However, in that, there was no money in there for staking the project. So basically setting elevation for the project. So our pavers know how deep to cut the dirt away, where to set the pavement, how deep to set the base rock. And so what I've got tonight is, I just got it today, and I apologize, but is a contract, is a work order for Great Rivers Engineering for up to $10,000, not to exceed $10,000 for staking the road and the trail. The reason it's a not to exceed is we've been trying to reach out to Blevins, and I don't know if anybody's ever messed with pavers, but they're not super easy to get a hold of. They just, like I said, I got a call earlier this week, said, hey, we'll be there Friday. Okay. I don't know, we don't know for sure exactly what they want us to stake and how much detail they need. Obviously, the more detail they need, the higher the cost will be. This is also work. This will also cover Great River to come back and stake the trail next May. So as you guys know, we couldn't really get the concrete done in this paving season, but it is set to be done by May. So this covers both. So what I'm asking for tonight is for the board to approve a not to exceed $10,000 for staking for Great River.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Quinn?
No.
Lee?
No.
Cunningham?
When are they gonna come in and stake it?
Tomorrow,
Okay,
well,
so they're gonna be able to do it before Blevins gets here.
yes, it's in
Okay.
conjunction, yes, with them, yes.
Boggs? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approve old meters and metal lids as surplus. Also Sam.
So we had, as you guys were aware from the last surplus that we had, in order for us to get rid of property, you guys have to deem it a surplus. These 3,000 meters that we're taking out, I explained earlier, I think we're at 2,400, 2,500. They're starting to pile up. And so we need to do something with them. They're not of any value. Some of them are plastic, but they're not of any value to another city to put in the ground. They're 20 plus years old, 15, 20 year plus. And so the brass absolutely has value. In fact, I think depending on the price of brass at the time, and depending on, there's some of them that are going to be, some of the bigger meters are going to be a cast, more of a ductile iron, not brass, but I think that we're looking at just scrap prices. I think we're going to see somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 out of the scrap. And so we've had some companies that know that we're putting this meter program in, and they came in and they wanted to just buy them. They just wanted to buy them. So we had two or three different companies come in and give us prices, and it was right at half of what the scrap prices are. Now, there is work that goes into that. They have plastic tops on them that you have to, these are clean brass prices. So we're gonna have to take all the meters apart. So 2,500 times, that's a lot, or 3,000 times, that's a lot. But in the end, it's worth it. We're getting ready to go into the season where it's a perfect time for it. Cold, rainy, wet days, pull a pallet of them in, rip them apart, and it's good work, and it's a good process, and it's good financially for us to do this. So Richard is all on board, and he recommends, first of all, he recommended just taking the money from one of these other entities until he checked into the scrap prices and said, we can't do that. That's just leaving too much on the table. So I think for the time of year for it is, it's not time pressing whatsoever. They can work on it as they have time, and it's multiple departments. It's not just the water department. If we were to get the inmates back, that's something they could do. But I think that it makes good sense for us just to do it ourselves as we do that. May not be one check for $15,000. It may just depends on how we get a big group of them together and the scrap prices go up. We may get the small check. Maybe that we get a whole bunch, get all of them done, and then we pull it in, and then you will get a big check. But I just need the board to approve those surplus.
Okay, questions or comments? Lee?
No.
Lee, Cunningham?
No.
Boggs?
No.
Quinn?
No.
Looking for a motion?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Revenue projections and financial updates. Oh, you want us to wait just a minute?
Yes, please.
Can do. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, I'm sure they are. Thanks for letting me know.
Could have waited till after the meeting. You
Yeah.
still got to vote on
I'm
some
really
stuff.
surprised it's
He's
actually worse than that. I mean, it's just been on 15 minutes.
You still got to vote on some stuff. You could have waited.
Spoil everything.
All right, Monica?
In the packet should be a spreadsheet with some revenue projections for the general fund, the cemetery fund, and the parks fund. And then also provided a kind of a little bit of an explanation on some of these. And the big one for the general fund is the sales tax. 2020 and 2021, well, we expected with COVID that the sales tax would decrease, and it has not decreased. When it didn't decrease last year in 2020, I thought it was because we were realizing sales from people that weren't going to Springfield or to Lebanon. Well, Springfield and Lebanon are also seeing an increase in sales tax revenues. So I've talked to some other finance directors, and there's some real uncertainty if this is a permanent increase or temporary, and what is it going to look like for next year's budget. So I am very conservative in my projections. I can also be talked into some other ideas on this, but for the moment, I'm just looking at using for the budget 2022 sales tax projection is what was budgeted for the current year. I think as we get closer to the end of the year, we might be able to see what that really looks like, if we need to increase that or decrease that. But I do believe our estimated actuals for our sales tax for 2021 is going to be more than what was budgeted. So it looks like a decrease for next year, but it's really just the same as what has been budgeted for this year. And then for some of these other line items, well, most everything else is really just historical. Your franchise fees, what has it been in the past, interest, look at, we just switched banks, so we'll see a little bit in there for that. Vehicle sales tax and fuels tax, it's again just using some conservative numbers. And then if you drop down to, the cemetery fund and the property taxes, that is based on your assessed values. So I don't know if you have any questions or comments, if you think we need to go into this in more detail.
I'll add just a few other comments. One thing to remember with the sales tax, which we're currently forecasting as flat. All of these will go through the Finance Advisory Committee. We've got some great financial minds that'll look over this and help Monica adjust as needed. So I've always trusted that group to make some great decisions. They understand economic factors more than I am comfortable to say I understand them myself. So I've always trusted that group. With this year being an estimated 5% CPI increase, it is quite possible that this trend will slow. And that is the overall economic expectation. Eventually, the federal government will quit printing, we hope, and quit dispersing, and the money will dry up. And when it does, the sales tax does too, right? So I think that makes sense. The lodging tax, that is a tax that is passed directly through to the Chamber of Commerce. It is a tax specifically on guests who stay in the hotels. And it's specifically meant for tourism. So that is a pass through. The franchises we can get to in a minute or two. You want to go into those?
Okay.
So we've kind of talked about franchise tax over the last several years. You know, what is it and why do we have it and who do we collect it on and what's the scoop, right? And the question on many of these is, why does it keep going down? Well, the telephone franchise, I can tell you it's because it's not on cell phone providers. And if you're like me, I don't have a landline. It's the same reason why 911 needed a different dedicated revenue source, because they could not operate off what they used to operate on, and that was landline tax. So that particular line item where you see another $10,000 drop, that's just what we've experienced year to year to year to year, and it will probably continue until it's completely obsolete. That is just a reality that we're dealing with. But some of these others, Monica did a bunch of research on these and was able to educate me quite a bit. Of course, our only electric is Webster. And we've seen fluctuations over the years with them. But the question was, well, what on earth do we collect this on and how do we figure it out? Well, Monica, you want to tell them what we've learned?
So on the electric franchise, we had an agreement, the city had an agreement with Show Me Power that was signed back in 1981, and it was good for 10 years. And then in 1987, Show Me, well, Webster Electric bought that portion of the company, as well as that agreement transferred over. So Show Me had continued to honor that agreement, but then it expired, and it's just expired. We're still collecting the money, but as far as I was able to see and what we had available, I mean, that's never been renewed.
Yeah, so this is one of those issues where we probably ought to have a contract, but then again, it's a sleeping dog.
That's.
How do you want to play this, right?
We don't want them to come back and say, we shouldn't have paid you for the last 25 years, and therefore we want our money back.
So that's just kind of where that's at this point. And unless we're directed in some other way, that's probably where we leave it, right? Natural gas, that is, what was the scoop on that one? I lost
So
it.
Summit Natural Gas.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, that's the only gas company in Marshfield that I.
And that agreement is for 20 years.
Correct,
And it didn't start all that long ago. I want to say we're
Signed in
7 years in.
2014.
Okay. And then the cable franchise, that is MediaCom.
Well, not necessarily.
No,
So
okay.
the ordinance was, the cable franchise ordinance is from 1998. And it was with US Cable Television Group. The only franchise we are receiving under cable is MediaCom. So I don't know. I don't know if we have.
I think what the assumption is that MediaCom acquired the group that we had to deal with, whatever, several decades ago. What we don't have is, we're not collecting any money from any other cable providers. So we probably need to find out who all is providing cable in Marshfield and seek out some sort of meeting with them about that they need to have a franchise agreement with the city of Marshfield. Right now, the only people that have the franchise agreement with us.
Ultimately, it's about evening the playing field, right? It's not appropriate for us unless we really only have one cable provider. And honestly, I can't tell you. But if we only have one cable provider, then we're fine. If we don't, if there are competitors and they're not having to pay this, that's not.
Does cable include Dish and DirecTV and the other?
That's my understanding. I'm sure they could, if they don't believe they owe it, they will let us know. My guess is, because I've had some experience with this on a litigation matter, they're probably collecting it anyway. Just not remitting. Because it's standard to pay a franchise fee, so we'll just pick DirecTV. I'm sure people that have DirecTV here in Marshfield are paying on their bill a franchise fee, and DirecTV is just not remitting it to the city. And a lot of these, they'll have a secret spreadsheet just called like slush fund, which is just the money they're collecting, and they're not going to remit it until somebody tells them.
So that is an area of revenue that we could most certainly explore. It may require some additional legal fees because we're going to need the help of our attorney to guide us through this. Have you ever had to use an external auditor?
I know some. I mean,
Yeah.
they're expensive.
Yeah, we've seen, so another auditor friend of mine has done some work on this type of fee as well. And yeah, sometimes it's necessary and sometimes it's worth the cost in order to provide a different revenue line. So something else to think of there. Any others that you wanted to call out?
I guess I would just add to that one fee thing. So if MediaCom's only paying us $23,000 a year, and if they're the biggest cable provider in town, we would probably be spending way more than that on the audit to get.
Yes.
In other words, we're going to be upside down to go after, say, one of these Dish places. We're probably going to spend more trying to get them on the hook and doing the audit on what they owe than what they're ever going to actually owe.
It's much better to do a letter, a lot of letters, but nonetheless, a conversation basis in order to see where we can get.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not so difficult. The ones that I have seen audited are the ones that over the next 10 years, we're going to gross some exponential amount of money. I don't know that Marshfield's going to see that. The other thing that I wanted to point out from this is that our 2021 budget is 2.4. Our 2022 budget is 2.3. I can guarantee you that our expenditures are not going to do that. So this is one of those areas where we've been talking about the fact that general revenue has been flat. Well, it may end up being flat again after we talk through some more of these as we get closer to the end of the year and we see what's really going to happen. But nothing else in this fund is flat. It's growing at an exponential rate. And so that is where we've talked to you before about the use tax, the Wayfair tax that the state passed this year. And that is an opportunity, though it's not the easiest one to educate on, right? It's not a new tax, but it sounds like a new tax. It's the tax that people pay on items that are purchased online from a vendor who actually has a store front in. Yeah, it's complicated, right? But there is money on the table there. That is an opportunity that would go into this fund. Another opportunity that I'll go ahead and throw out is I'm not gonna say most, a lot of cities have a sales tax that's dedicated to law enforcement. I would encourage you guys to look through the budget and compare what each fund costs, what each department costs. It's got our largest number of employees, you know exactly where it is, right? It is a new tax. It is one that our citizens might support. It's something to consider because again, these numbers are not running in the right direction for us to do any of the things we want to do. And as we're talking about economic development incentives, they come from this fund too. We can't add those at this point. So any input on just general fund at this point? Any input on those numbers? Any input on looking at other types of revenue going forward? I'll just run down the line. Cunningham,
No, good.
Boggs,
No.
Quinn?
When can we discuss and possibly make a move on Wayfair or law enforcement tax and things like that? What's the schedule for that?
It depends on what ballot we want placed on. Ultimately, both of them will require a ballot issue.
Right.
So there's some there's education more than anything that goes into that, right? You want to plan to have enough time so that you can educate your voters on what it is you're asking for. And then there are certain elections that you're allowed to put these on and certain elections you're not. And Karen knows more about that than I do.
Yeah, I'll speak for Karen a little bit. We kind of talked about this internally. She put together a calendar of when those are. And so we can, if that's something you want, then we can share what we put together. We can get you something.
There is a cost to have another ballot issue. So there's always election cost. That is something to consider as well.
So basically you share that cost with whoever else is on that ballot. And so I will tell you that for these other ballot questions, I've talked to some of the other city administrators around, and when they get ready to do that, obviously the city can't be in favor of that or against it, right? We're neutral. You guys can, but the city can't. But the city other cities have hired expertise to come in and educate and put it out there in a way that is very neutral, but it gets all the details out of what the facts are behind whatever you might be considering. Something that we haven't done. Our voters have always been very supportive and overwhelmingly by an overwhelming percentage. However, there comes a point where they may
Absolutely.
not, and that was all prior to COVID, right? And so I think the economics have changed. So I don't know where that lies.
Alderman Lee?
No.
Okay. I think cemetery and parks were, and please remember, parks revenue does not include the program revenue. This is just the tax basis and the interest. Were there any questions on those specifically? Okay. Do you want to look at projections? Do you want to provide anything there or?
Well, I did provide
Some historic.
historical look, and I did extend out the general operating sales tax. So typically whatever I use for the general will be also used for the parks as well, and then the transportation fund. Well, but historically, I wanted to show you, even when we have dipped, those years that we have seen a decrease, actual decrease in sales tax. Either the following year, the decrease, or at the very latest, 2 years later, we see an increase to above before the decrease, if that makes sense. So for example, we saw the decrease in 2009 of a decrease of 2.5%. We saw a decrease in 2010, but then in 2011, we were up. We saw, we collected more sales tax in 2011 than when we were in 2008. So we're insulated a little bit as far as our volatility is basically what I'm trying to say. Even though we may see a decrease either in 2022 or 2023, whenever the economy starts to slow down, I feel like we're not going to see a decrease over too many years.
Right. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with our businesses providing basic need items. We don't have a lot of big box, the things that you can do without when things get tough. So I agree. We have been lucky to be pretty insulated.
Well, I think COVID shows exactly
point.
that, right? I think for the mom and pop stuff that had to shut down or wasn't deemed essential or chose not to be open, you didn't see a dip in our sales tax relief because I think the other needs offset and you couldn't get anything, you couldn't buy anything because everybody's buying everything as it came in. So I think it kind of offsets that.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
On the lodging, I know that Dickey House, they had sent the forms, I think, are we getting anything from them yet on lodging?
Are we? Great. All right. We'll move on to website consultant. Mark, you've got this?
Yes, ma'am. So we put together the website design and development RFQ, and we got 4 companies that came back that responded to that. All 4 companies met the qualifications. So we interviewed all 4 of the companies. We've got a scoring sheet in there. You can see how the companies kind of scored out. The number 1 company on there is Civic Plus, and they probably scored highest. They've got the most experience. They've been around the longest, and all they do is our civic websites. They just do government websites. That's their specialty. That's what they do. So they scored really high. With these 4 different companies, we actually had 4 different content management systems that are used with these websites. So each company used a different management system. The one that was in 4th place used the same system that is used with our current website. So it's a little bit older and a little bit harder to use. And as you work up in the scores, they use a management system that's a little bit easier to use. One of the things that we were looking for is, can we manage and update our own website, and can we do it easily, like making a flyer, or like being in Word, or on Publisher or something of that nature. And these different management systems are what determine the ease of use. One of the nice things about the top rated one is they have multiple different ways that you can interface and change that website internally. They've got the old school way, you can still do it with the HTML language, that's still a possibility. And then there's something that's called changing something on the back end. So you get in and you change a few things, and then you flip over to that website and you see what your changes look like. Civic Plus has a system where you can pull it up in real time, make the changes, and you can see the projected changes and what that's going to look like before you execute that and make that go live. So there were several benefits and things that kind of made that one stand out. Another thing is their operating system, it's theirs, that they own it. It's called Civic Engage. They created it, and that's their system. Another great thing is that they've got other modules that you can add on. For instance, the Parks Department is looking to potentially add a module where we can do online registrations and reservations, and people can pay for stuff and register online through an integrated system with our website. The neat thing about that is that as we grow and expand, if we get an activity center and things like that, we'll have to have one of those systems to operate. And this would get us already plugged into that. And it would upgrade the system that we're making work right now, but they've got one that's internal. So it's made to interface with and interact with their websites and made to be seamless like that. So Civic Plus was the one that scored the highest, and I think that's the one that staff is recommending for approval to go into negotiations with to design and build a website.
All right, looking for questions or comments. Boggs?
Nope.
Quinn?
Nope.
Lee?
Nope.
Cunningham? All right. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is an amendment to code on alcoholic beverages.
So Paul, jump in here and correct me where I'm wrong, but so we had a request that will actually be coming to a board meeting, to the next board meeting. There's a location in town that is within 300 feet of a church and close to being within the proximity of a school. And so this isn't the first time this came up. And so obviously there was code, this language was in the code anyway. And what you see is the newest version of this. And we tried to clean this up a little bit. But what became apparent was that, you know, they would contact Rick or they would contact myself in different circumstances, not the same entity, obviously, but we weren't being consistent in how we were measuring. So it could be from the building to building to building. It could be property line to property line. It could be front door to front door, whatever that might look like. So I challenged Scott Hansen to kind of look around and see what the normal was. And so what he came back with was basically what we're doing on the medical marijuana. And so what this does is it cleans some of the language up from the old ordinance that was a little bit confusing. And so you can see the red line version. And so, you know, if you drop down there in section C, for instance, the other one talked about they'll have written consent from the board 10 days prior to basically been provided to all property owners within 300 feet. Well, they're not gonna have written consent from the board. You might get a copy of the minutes, you might get something, but there was a clarification on that. This is really just a big clarification on the ordinance. This doesn't prohibit them from being able to do it. This doesn't enact anything to where we can no longer, if they're there before a school, that's no reason for us to deny it if a school comes in later or a church comes in later. But what this does is take a freestanding building. So if you look at section D, it basically is telling you that in the case of a freestanding building, this is between the facility and the school, daycare, home daycare, church, or other building. Basically be from the property line to the property line. So basically we're taking the closest pin to the closest pin and saying that if you're within this distance, we're not saying that you can't do it, but you've got to have board approval if you're within 300 feet. And so again, not prohibiting them from doing anything, but it is a safety net for those places that may be against it. I mean, they're there for a reason. But then you got to go a step further. So that's for a freestanding building. So what if one or the other is in a strip center or in a mall center, which we have had both, right? I mean, we've got stores in those strip centers, obviously, but we've had churches in there as well. So basically what it does is it takes the property line of the church or the school or the entity to the closest door. So meaning the closest entrance door or exit. And then basically it points out again that it's the shortest distance between the two.
The only thing I would add is it's really just to clean up for uniformity so people know what you're measuring from. Because it happens in every city I've ever been in, where when it's unclear, people, if they're in favor of it, they want to measure from some place. If they're against it, they want to measure from another place. So this just kind of cleans up where we're measuring from on these.
And before it becomes a conflict, like I said, there has been no conflict, but because there will be somebody on your next agenda that has this, but that is requesting this, and those notices have already went out. And so, but again, Rick had somebody inquiring about it on a whole nother property. He measured it one way. I had an inquiry about it from another person, and I measured it this way. And then it just so happened that they were in close enough proximity that we visited about it. And I was like, oh, well, we're not being consistent, right? So there was no guidance to be consistent. This gives the guidance to be consistent.
Okay. Questions, comments? Quinn?
No.
Lee?
No.
Cunningham?
No.
Boggs? Okay. First reading, bill number 2031-33, an ordinance amending chapter 600 of the Marshfield City Code, an article pertaining to alcoholic beverages by revising an existing section 600.035, sales of liquor prohibited near schools or churches.
Make a motion. Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.
Second reading, bill number 2031-33, an ordinance amending chapter 600 of the Marshfield City Code, an article pertaining to alcoholic beverages by revising an existing section of section 600.035, sales of liquor prohibited near schools or churches. I made it through the last one and I can't do this.
Second.
Roll call, please. Ann?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Cunningham?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the safe room NOI. So I'll start this off and then kick it over to Sam, but Sam reached out. We had Christy Beatty with Sept, who we worked with quite a bit, reached out to Sam regarding safe room grants that are being made available again. It's always a great program. The question was, could we use one, and if so, where? And so Sam kicked it around and I kicked it around, and the grants that are being offered, in this point, it's just offered, are 75-25 grants. We talked about where we had the need within our city, where our population was most dense. We tossed around a lot of scenarios, and ultimately I'll let Sam go from there, but we had an opportunity arise. So I'll let Sam go through kind of what we decided.
Our code states that the Board of Alderman have to approve any grant that we apply for. And so what I have done is I have submitted an NOI, so a notice of intent to apply for a grant. At this point, I don't need any board approval. Obviously, if you guys were just totally opposed, I could withdraw it, but it doesn't cost us anything. Basically, it puts our name in the hat to even see if we score well for a safe room. So when Christy called me, obviously, Sept Design, we're under contract with them, and we're obligated to use them for some future things in the activity complex. So she was absolutely doing her job, looking out for that, saying, hey, could we look at this, and are you interested in applying for this for the next phase of the activity complex? We looked at that, and there's certain criteria that go into that. One of them is the proximity to another safe room. And then another one is, and there's several, but the two major ones laying out there for us was the density, was population density. When you get out there, the population density is not very high because there's a lot of undeveloped property, because they only take a certain measurement within where you're going to put it. And then the proximity, I mean, the school has one, we have one down at the fairgrounds. It is pretty close to those. I mean, they could be closer, but they are within town, right? It would be really close. So then we started looking at that, and I said, hey, I appreciate what you're doing on that end, but then we got to discussing, and I said, hey, could you, can you house another facility in there? If you can put an activity complex, can you put offices? Can you do this and that? So basically what it boiled down to was what I was pointing at is that I know that you guys are considering what to do with City Hall and what you're going to do with this building versus another building. And so this could be another option on the table to slap it. You can't build onto this building with it, but you can slap this building right up against it if you wanted to. Safe rooms have come a long way since we put the one down at the fairgrounds. They don't have to look like that. That was a concrete precast building that's what it was. These, for the aesthetic portion of it, the grant won't pay for the aesthetics of it. But you can put storm resistant storefronts on them and make them look very nice. You can put brick molds in there so it actually looks like brick. You can paint that. You can do, I've seen some pictures of some that are just absolutely beautiful. You can infill that with offices or with anything else that you want to, really, as long as you leave a certain percentage of that space open and available. Which in this case, if it was a city hall, it would be the council room, which you would have a massive council room, because that's what it would be the safe room. But that is allowed to do under the grants. However, the interior, the finishing of the interior is not eligible for the grant. So there would be some things to work out there. So I talked to Christy and asked her, how would this location score if that's something that the board wanted to look at? And so she kind of pulled the proximity and the density for the population over here, and it actually scores very well. So I said, well, obviously, I said, well, how long is this good for? Well, that process could take up to 2 years before you even know if you apply, right? And so it's not hurting anything to put our name in the hat for that. I said, well, I don't know where our current elected officials will land on what we're going to do. That could be an option. I said, but if we have a complete board turnover, or if this current board is still on there and they have no appetite for that, we get the phone call back. Can we move that? I said, we have another board and they don't have any appetite. If we've done something past that already by that point, can we do something else with it? It's a big deal to move this application or this NOI from here across the road. It's a big deal to move it from here across that road. It's not a big deal to move it on this property. So I talked to Christy and I said, listen, I think I want to go ahead and put the NOI in because I think I would have enough support from the Parks Board and from you all to go ahead and do so, knowing that we can withdraw, because even if we decide and figure out that City Hall is just not the best idea for that, or if we say, hey, it's going to be a $4 million project, maybe we don't want to invest $1 million into that. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But this building, this facility, for the square footage that we're talking about, because they'll only pay for a certain size based off the density, right? And how many people you have to house in there in an emergency. This building would fit inside the footprint of the tennis courts. So we have talked, obviously, there are certain individuals in town that use it and want the tennis courts there. But we've also looked at it and we know that it's $225,000 to $250,000 to make it what it needs to be. So is that the right place for it? Is that something that we could ever partner with the school? Do we do something different? Basically, you're rebuilding that whole thing. So I put the NOI in for this location to be able to put to this building, if that's something you guys are interested in. If not, it can be moved somewhere else on this property. The only logical place would be inside the footprint. At that point, you could be looking at having an indoor gymnasium. You could be looking at whatever else you might want to do, but you would just plan accordingly for the use, obviously, for the ceiling height and whatever. Talked to Mark and it's like, man, I could program that out for days if I had something like that over here on the side of town, because they do pay for air conditioning and heating, because that is part of the ventilation in a is that.
So at this point, it's just a name in the hat. That's it. But it was important for us to let you know that we put the name in the hat, because it could be a portion of our future discussions, not only for City Hall, but along safety, along parks and other things as it comes up. So
Typically, I would have asked you all before I did the NOI. However, it was due today, so I couldn't wait. And at this point, again, doesn't cost us a dime. It's not a red flag. It's not a black mark or anything. If we were to withdraw, if it goes to the next round and we score well enough and it does go, and they say, hey, listen, you've made it this far and now you apply. If we apply and we're awarded and then we pull out, we probably will not ever get it. So right now, we're not obligated to do anything other than say, hey, this could be, and it could just be a planning exercise, but it's worth doing.
any questions or comments from board members? Okay. Let's move on to approval of a trailer purchase. Sam?
So the last meeting, maybe last meeting, you guys graciously approved the purchase of a mini excavator. During the budget process, we had budgeted $60,000 for a mini excavator and a trailer. The mini excavator was $44,400, I believe. So we've been looking for a trailer since we kind of put this together on the information together on the mini. I will tell you that much like the pipe that I talked about earlier, you can't find anything, and when you do, you need to be able to jump on it. So we talked to local vendors. We went to Springfield. We called Springfield, called every vendor basically within the area, and they just said, "Man, good luck. I don't know when we will get one. We've got all sorts of trailers on order." We got a phone call within 2 days. We got phone calls from 3 different places that got these trailers in that we're looking for. So Brandon. It was a couple days before he could go get torn off to where he could go up there and look at them. He had asked him, if they would hold them, if he could put a deposit down. One place had said, hey, if you put a deposit down, yes, we'll hold it. Before he could get up there and put a deposit down, they'd sold 2 of them. This other company, this one that is in front of you, they are holding it. And I told them that I would be able to give them an answer tomorrow. And so I can tell you that the other ones were right around in this price range. The one that we were going to put, I told Brandon to go put the deposit on. It's $100 non-refundable deposit. It's worth it to me to reserve that. It was for 12,300, I think. And so this is what we're looking for. This is a little heavier duty. It's 1,000 pounds heavier duty axles than the trailer that we're using for our skid steer. It's much needed. Right now, we have one trailer to tuck those 2 pieces of equipment around. If it's needed elsewhere, we just have no way to move them. So without really disrupting something. So my recommendation would be for you all to approve the purchase of this. It still keeps us under the 60,000 with budget as a whole.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Lee?
No.
Cunningham?
Nope.
Boggs?
Nope.
Quinn?
Nope.
If not, I'm looking for a motion for approval.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Future agenda items.
Incentives. Or we need to set up what a finance committee, or not a finance.
Oh, financial advisor for economic development incentives. And I think we were gonna do RFQs on that process, or
I think we could probably get by with RFPs on that. So I know you and
that
I
would,
have talked.
that would make it go a little faster.
Yeah, so just for clarification, I know Natalie and I have talked, but just to kind of follow up. We did talk about that. I was gonna bring that Matt put together a proposal, but the cost exceeds, it's gonna kick us into a professional services agreement. So we're gonna have to do either an RFQ or an RFP to select those services. So it's not as simple as just working with Matt or with Steeple. So we're gonna have to go through a process to do that. And so I've got some numbers that have been passed along to me to call. And so I just need to see what that RFP or RFQ looks like. So I'll have to write that up.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll try to get that available so that, and get it posted so that we can go on that. A lot of times on these professional services, we post it like we always do, but we also seek out contacts. So I'm sure you've contacted other cities, see who they're using.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I haven't about who they're using, but I have been following it's been a fun ongoing loop on a listserv of
Okay.
emails that we have about the specifications and about the RFQ versus RFP. So it's on my desk. I've got another policy that was passed along to me. And so I do think that we can put something together for Marshfield that's specific to Marshfield, but I think we need to select who we're gonna use for that first.
Okay. So get that ball rolling. Anything else?
We brought it up before. I don't know if like put it back on there, but is it lift station number 1 across from Walmart by the Welcome to Marshfield sign? We talked about fencing that off. So
That's right.
Richard's
I had a few ideas for that.
okay, perfect.
Okay. Would that be something we just want Robbie to get in contact with Richard and then put it back on the agenda for approval or discussion?
Yeah, so
It'd probably be a little easier. That way you can talk through your ideas with him.
Well, it was kind of along the lines, Sam had already brought up like
Uh-huh.
privacy fencing it off, which I really think that it will clear the Marshfield sign. I've looked at it probably 30 times, and then we could maybe get is it Samantha Cox that paints murals and maybe do something cool on a privacy fence on this highway side
Yep.
to go inside with the Marshfield sign, maybe. I don't know.
So
Okay.
Richard will be in those, he'll be with us next Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay.
So it'll be perfect time. And so we might be able to hit that. We might be able to do something over there.
Okay, if you guys can come to consensus, I'm sure we'll be happy to talk about it and get it done.
Yep.
Anyone else have any future agenda items?
When are we gonna have a discussion about the employee retention benefit adjustment? Do you know, we've mentioned that a few times.
So I am still working on the salary comparison. I've made it through police and most of administration. I am not done with utilities. I've got the superintendents done, but not the laborers below that. And I don't have anything on parks. Parks was not involved in the study, I guess, and so I don't have that information. But I'm really close to being able to provide some pay range information to everybody. And then maybe we should just do a presentation on benefits that are currently offered. That way the board would have a better understanding of what our plans are that we offer to employees, and kind of what the costs are to the city and the costs are to the employee. Would that work? Let's put it on the next agenda, but I may have to bump it. Okay.
And then I was wondering if we had an update on the city hall appraisal. Is it still in the works? Wait,
Haven't showed up. I'll reach back out to them, just see if I can get an update, but they did tell me it'd be 6 to 8 weeks when I talked to them. They said it'd be 6 to 8 weeks before we can even touch it, so.
So how about we put that on the 1st of October agenda, and then we can bump it if we have to. At least we'll have some traction on it.
and I had mentioned this earlier this week, but I'm interested in the city to see if the other aldermen and you would be in favor of, if it can't be an ordinance, a resolution against this mandatory vaccination thing that's going across the country, because I would like to discourage it in this area. I think, there's a long history of sovereignty of what I put into my own body. And so I would like to see the city not adopt that, and maybe just have a discussion about how to best address that issue.
Absolutely. So on the ordinance front, I mean, it definitely can't be an ordinance because we can't say what other employers do with their employees. We don't have that authority. We can most certainly say what we're doing with our employees, which I would completely agree with you, is that we would not have a mandate of any sort. We're welcome to say that. We're welcome to put a formal motion into play. It doesn't really have any value.
No teeth to it.
No,
but
it doesn't. But we can do it just as the process that it is. Even ordinances, I mean, it was an ordinance for that emergency declaration, and the only person who voted on that was Stacy, and we just repealed it. So the same process is always available, but we can most certainly say, what we're doing for our employees. Would we be interested in additional conversation, or?
No, I was just throwing it out there to see.
I think it might be, at least that way everybody knows where that stands, because a lot of families seem to be concerned with what will they be faced with, mandates not, and maybe at least that way there'd just be a statement of something that they would know.
Why don't, in that pay rates and benefits, why don't we put in policies on the end of that?
Okay.
And then we could talk about it all together as we're talking about our employees.
Because in watching the news today, wow, our national leadership is going in a totally different direction.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.